Good morning, everyone, and welcome. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Marco DeVidio, and I'm the president of the Celano Canadian Club in Mississauga. Thank you so much for participating in our conference. This has been something very different, the club to host. We've gone out of our boundaries. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Master of Ceremony, Esther. Esther is the co-owner and lead event planner of the well-respected Ital Florist Limited of Toronto. Both her parents, Eligio and Tonina, were born and raised in Celano, and Esther, through their legacy, continues to love and embrace her Celanese roots with pride. Through her many years of personal and professional experience in the Italian community, we are thrilled to have Esther present our special event, Tommaso Da Celano. Please help me welcome our moderator and presenter, Esther Paris Mauro.
Good morning, friends and honored guests. It is a privilege to welcome you all to this very special event, Tommaso Da Celano, La Vita, le Opere, I Luoghi. We gather here to honor Tommaso Da Celano, one of the most important figures in the history of the Franciscan order and Christian spirituality. But first, I would like to take your attention and we will do a land acknowledgement before we begin. We respectfully acknowledge that the City of Toronto is situated in the Territory and Treaty 13 lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. As representatives of the people of the City of Toronto, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. Thank you, merci, miigwech. And now at this time, I respectfully ask you to stand, if able, for both the Italian and Canadian national anthems. I would like to begin with a sincere thank you to the Celano Canadian Club in collaboration with CRAM, il Consiglio Regionale Abruzzese nel Mondo, for presenting and hosting today's program. Also, our sincere thanks goes to Marco Dovidio, Laura Di Gennaro, Antonio Tomassini, Federico Felli, Luigi Cornelio, and Nadia Mazzonetto for their dedication and hard work in organizing this wonderful event. Tommaso Da Celano, an Italian friar, poet, and hagiographer. He's remembered not only for his deep commitment to the Franciscan ideals, but also for his profound contributions to the understanding of St. Francis of Assisi. A man of letters and a man of faith, Thomas wrote 3 pivotal hagiographies that gave the world a unique and intimate view of St. Francis, preserving his legacy for generations to come. Through his works, The First Life of St. Francis, The Second Life of St. Francis, and his hymn to St. Francis, Thomas of Celano brought to life the spiritual journey of a man who would become a saint, who inspired a movement that continues to echo through history. His words were not only an expression of admiration for St. Francis, but also a reflection of his own devout faith and the deeply transformative power of the Franciscan way of life. Today, we come together not only to commemorate his literary and spiritual legacy, but to reflect on how the life of Thomas of Celano, much like that of St. Francis, calls us to pursue a life of humility, compassion, and service. We will learn more about Tommaso Da Celano later in today's program. At this time, I would like to introduce to you the Director of the Education Office for the Consulate General of Italy to say a few words. Please help me welcome Professoressa Laura Innocenti. Professoressa.
Thank you everybody. As she said, I am the Director of Education. I arrived in April, so it's not a very long time I'm here, but I'm very pleased to having been invited to this big event. I see so many people here, so I'm very pleased to be here and to have the honor to open and to have this opportunity also to let me know, to let you know me. And so also I must admit that I didn't know too much about Tommaso Da Celano, so this was also for me a wonderful opportunity, and it is going also to be an opportunity to learn more about this important poet and writer and Franciscan. And he is venerated as Beato, and as she said, Esther said, he wrote one of the most important biographies about San Francisco d'Assisi. So it's very, very important because what we know about this important figure is thanks to Tommaso Da Celano. And he, of course, as many also writers and poets and painters, he has his name because of the place where he came from and where I think you come from as well. So it's very, very important to celebrate these figures who remember us, who we are, and who also Italians, these aspects which are very important, humility and compassion, what we are supposed to be as humans anyway. I think this is very important. And now, so I think it's the time to give also to turn our attention. Also, this is very important to students, bursaries that you give, it's important. And I also look forward to the musical interlude. I'm really looking forward to it, inspired by Tommaso Da Celano's poetry. Thank you so much, and have a nice day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professoressa. Let us now enjoy the program we have prepared for today. We begin with a musical presentation by soprano Bianca D'Amore and pianist Sabrina Cadrone, recorded in the city of Celano in the Church of San Francesco. The Church of San Francesco was built in 1345. Inside, there is an altar dedicated to Tommaso of Celano. The first performance is called Dies Irae, a Latin sequence that speaks of the Last Judgment. It is performed here in Gregorian chant. Enjoy.
Thank you.
got goosebumps. I don't know about you guys. That was beautiful. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce to you the mayor of the city of Celano, live from Celano, to speak to us about the place where Tommaso was born and where he lived. Please welcome His Honorable Sindaco Settimio Santilli. Buonasera, Sindaco. Si sente it's muted? He's muted. Ci siamo? No, he's muted on his end, I think. Or we're muted.
Mi sentite?
Eccolo. Sì, sì.
Eccoci.
Buonasera, Sindaco.
Buonasera a voi.
I-
Ben rivisti.
Innanzitutto vi vogliamo ringraziare per la sua partecipazione in questo convegno molto speciale. Grazie.
Sono io a dover ringraziare voi per l'onore che mi state concedendo. Ovviamente porto i saluti della città di Celano a tutti voi che state partecipando a questa splendida iniziativa e quindi in particolare voglio ringraziare te, Esther, tra l'altro sei stata l'anno scorso anche sindaco per un giorno e quindi ti ringrazio tantissimo e ti abbraccio forte. Ringrazio poi ovviamente Federico Felli e Marco Doviti che sono stati i promotori. Marco è stato sindaco per un giorno quest'anno e ad agosto mi ha proposto questa iniziativa insieme a Federico. Ovviamente non so se lì con voi Nadia Barina Mazzonetto, Nadia è venuto con grande affetto, Luigi Cornelio che ha organizzato tutto il collegamento da remoto e poi un grosso ringraziamento lo voglio dedicare al ricordo di Eligio Paris, il tuo papà, cara Esther, che ha stato il promotore di tutto questo splendido rapporto che abbiamo instaurato con il Celano Canadian e quindi grazie a tutti voi di questa splendida realtà che avete creato negli anni in Canada e che ovviamente sposa le radici della nostra Celano. Vengo all'argomento per cui sono stato coinvolto, che è Tommaso Da Celano. Ovviamente la cosa più importante a cui tengo è che oltre a farlo conoscere magari maggiormente a tutti voi, sono contento di farlo conoscere soprattutto ai vostri figli e quindi far rimanere l'identità del personaggio più importante che ci contraddistingue a livello mondiale. L'altro ieri abbiamo iniziato le riprese di un film che stiamo realizzando proprio su Tommaso Da Celano in vista del 2026. Il 2026 è il centenario della morte di San Francesco, per cui stiamo lavorando su questo film in maniera da poterlo realizzare entro l'anno prossimo e quindi poterlo presentare magari anche a voi in un appuntamento sarebbe veramente bellissimo. Vengo pure all'argomento per cui sono stato coinvolto, ovvero quali sono stati i luoghi in cui è stato Tommaso Da Celano nella sua vita. Lui nasce appunto a Celano, ma ci rimane pochissimo tempo. va in giro con il suo amico, appunto San Francesco, che è il patrono, e quindi frequenta.
We'll get him back. It's live, yeah, it's a live feed, so we may have to. There we go. Might be on his end too. Things can always happen when you're doing live, especially a live feed from here to Italy. We'll get him on, or we can get him on the phone, maybe. On.
Sindaco, ci sono stati problemi, proviamo adesso.
Thank you for your patience.
Ci sono io.
Ecco. Sì. It won't feed. Oh. No, he's up. He's up. It's on mute.
Sindaco, possiamo continuare?
He's on mute.
Ok.
Ok.
Non so dove eravamo, eccoci. Non so dove eravamo rimasti.
Stava dicendo che è nato, ma c'è stato poco tempo a Celano.
Mi sentite?
Sì.
Ok. Dicevo che uno dei luoghi più visitati da Tommaso è stato Greccio. L'anno scorso è stato il centenario del presepe di San Francesco, che è stato narrato appunto da Tommaso Da Celano, e quindi uno dei luoghi più visitati da Tommaso è stato appunto Greccio, che si trova nel Riedino e con il quale il comune di Celano ha un patto di gemellaggio. Un altro luogo per il quale si è celebrato quest'anno il centenario è Chiusi della Verna. Quest'anno si è celebrato il centenario delle stimmate di San Francesco e l'abbazia di Chiusi della Verna è uno dei luoghi più belli che io abbia mai visitato in vita mia. È veramente qualcosa di suggestivo e molto molto bello a livello religioso ed architettonico. Perché vi dico questi due luoghi, Greccio ed Assisi, e Chiusi della Verna? A Chiusi della Verna e a Greccio abbiamo un altro personaggio celanese che è Giovanni Velita. Giovanni Velita è stato l'ultimo discendente dei conti di Celano, amico anch'egli di San Francesco, ed è stato colui che ha realizzato il primo presepe della storia del mondo cristiano. per cui Celano è famoso nel mondo per Tommaso Da Celano, ma anche per Giovanni Verita, che è stato l'ultimo dei conti di Celano. Adesso abbiamo instaurato un rapporto con il Vaticano qualche settimana fa perché ci vogliamo assolutamente avvicinare pian pianino al centenario della morte di San Francesco con tutta una serie di iniziative che il Vaticano intraprenderà insieme ad Assisi e a tutti i luoghi dove è stato anche Tommaso per celebrare San Francesco. Tommaso Da Celano è morto a Valgolardi, che è un comune sempre del Riechino, mentre le sue spoglie sono attualmente nella chiesa di San Francesco a Tagliacozzo. Nel 2019, dopo circa 800 anni, per la prima volta il corpo di Tommaso è stato riportato per un giorno a Celano. È stato un evento epocale, storico, che è avvenuto nel 2019 con tanta partecipazione della popolazione non soltanto celanese ma dell'intera Marsica, tanto è vero che da quel momento in poi noi celebriamo civilmente Tommaso come beato la seconda domenica di ottobre. Quindi per quanto concerne il popolo, Celano Tommaso quindi è beato, mentre per quanto riguarda l'ordine religioso la beatificazione ancora non avviene. Spero di essere rimasto nel tempo che mi è stato concesso dei 5-10 minuti. Se ci sono, spero di essere stato soprattutto chiaro e che mi abbiate ascoltato con interesse. Se ci sono altre cose su cui posso intervenire sono a completa disposizione di voi amici celanesi. Ne vedo tanti inquadrati e vi saluto veramente calorosamente, tra cui vedo Nadia, la moglie di Federico, e la saluto veramente con tanto affetto.
Sì.
Grazie a tutti.
Grazie. Sì. Sindaco, noi ci uniamo tutti quanti a ringraziarla per tutto questa informazione, non solo per augurarvi a voi un buon lavoro con queste iniziative a cui noi ci teniamo tanto e ci uniamo a salutarla. Tanti auguri per Buon Natale, per le feste che arrivano.
Tanti auguri anche a voi.
Va bene, noi continuiamo col nostro programma, se vuole rimanere, se c'è tempo, vuole rimanere a seguire, ci fa molto piacere.
Rimango.
Ok. Bene. The second musical performance by Bianca and Sabrina is called Lacrimosa from Mozart's Requiem. The text is the final verse of the Dies Irae, where eternal rest is invoked for the deceased. Please enjoy. time, I would like to welcome to the podium Brother Sunil Da Costa of the Orders of Friars Minor Capuchin, the religious order with the Franciscan family known for its emphasis on simplicity, poverty, and a life of service. Brother Sunil will speak to us about Tommaso's life, his works, and deeds. Please join me in welcoming Brother Sunil.
Should I say buonasera or buongiorno? Buongiorno. So I'll speak in English because my Italian is not that fluent. Poiché parlo un po' di italiano, quindi parlerò in inglese per favore. To begin with, we are looking at the life of Thomas of Celano 800 years later on. And most of the current modern scholarship looks with the lens from a modern perspective. So when you read Thomas of Celano or try to understand him, as with most writings from the medieval ages, you need to transport yourself into those times and periods to understand that. Because if you look it from a modern lens, then you can interpret it in different ways. So, I have structured this presentation in broadly two parts. First, we'll try to take a look at the life of Thomas of Celano, and then we'll look at his writings, right? At the very outset, there is not much of information on the life of Thomas of Celano in terms of actual concrete information that's verifiable. So what we know is that around 1185 to 1190, scholars have said that he was born into a noble family in Celano. So we do not know his exact date of birth. So this is very mindful, okay? We do not know about his early life. But we know around 1215, and this is a surmise, that some educated and noble men entered the Franciscan order. And because Thomas of Celano came from a noble family, around this time there was a group of educated men who joined the Franciscans. Scholars opined that he could be one of them. Okay? However, we know for certain 2 years of his life, from 1221 to 1223, because it's in a source, and that source is the writing of Brother Jordan of Giano. He writes that a couple of brothers went to Germany along with the head of the province. So within religious life, they divided administratively into provinces, and the head of each province is called a provincial minister. So a couple of Franciscan brothers accompanied the provincial, Brother Caesar of Speyer, to Germany to implant the order and also to draw and attract vocations. We also know that Brother Thomas was made what is called the custos. The custos is the head of houses in these places. And then, for a brief period of time, he was made the second in charge of the entire province in Rhineland. And then, broadly, at the end of 2023, he returned back to Italy and lived with the brothers. So that's what we know about his life because his name was mentioned. Now, in October 3rd, 2026, St. Francis of Assisi passed away. And 2 years later, he was canonized. So these we know dates for certain. And then we get on to his writings. Okay? So the first one, which he really became famous for, was the first life of St. Francis. That's attributed to Thomas of Celano. He also wrote what is called a legend for use in the choir. And we'll come to each of these writings of his in the second part. So it was used in choir service. It was more like a shortened or a concise version of the first life. Then it was followed up by the second life of St. Francis, and then the treatise on miracles of St. Francis. Later on, traditionally, his name has been attributed to the life of St. Clare, and also the hymn that we just heard at the beginning, Dies Irae, has been traditionally attributed to Thomas of Celano. Roundabout in 1255 to 1260, for about 5 years, he was the chaplain or a spiritual director in modern terms to the Poor Clare sisters, or they were called the Poor Ladies of St. Clare, in a town close to Celano. It was said he was buried in a church nearby, and then his remains were taken and transferred to the Church of St. Francis in the same place where he was the spiritual chaplain. Now, October 4th, 1260 has been the traditional date of the death of Thomas of Celano. And that source comes from the order of the Franciscans. That's the only source. Okay? So we do not know much of his early life. We know one section of 2 years of his life for certain, because that's mentioned in an article. And then towards the end, we know he lived for about a couple of years near Celano, where he was ministering to the Poor Clare sisters. And then some scholars are of the opinion that we do not know his date, because the Franciscan sources, there is nothing concrete and material to latch on exactly his date. So it's very important to understand this perspective. So let's go and take a look at his writings. At the very outset, the 3 lives of St. Francis, something can be drawn about the author. This author was a very skilled literary craftsman and a painstaking artist. Now, you have to understand, if Thomas of Celano came from a noble family, 800 years ago, only those who were wealthy and came from noble families, they sent their children for higher education. So they learned Latin, which was the language. So this is medieval Latin, right? So Thomas of Celano was sent by his family to learn medieval Latin because they could afford that. And plus also, his own personality played a role. So he had a gift of writing, and that you could see reproduced in the first life of St. Francis, which is a beautifully written book. You need to be a skilled author to write that, and that's what we can draw out. His style is very vigorous, forceful, elegant, and poetic. And he uses figurative language, metaphors, simile, and play on words. So that speaks to the skill level of the author. He also uses contrasts and antithesis to a very good effect. And he inserts passages from classical writers and early Christian writers. So he's knowledgeable because he has studied all this. He draws from different sources and incorporates in his own work. And then the last point is many medieval writers who were very skilled use the artistic device of curses. It's a rhythmic end pattern. It's very poetic, right? And many ancient writers use this technique. For example, I give it out there, nomine se tuentur, operati conjuntur, mala secuntur, opera dilabuntur. So towards the end of every sentence, he signed it off that way. It requires a very highly skilled set to do that. Now, let's take a look at the first life of Saint Francis. Saint Francis died in 2026, August 3rd. He was close, when he was growing up in Assisi, he was close to a particular cardinal. And that cardinal then went on to become Pope. Pope Gregory IX. Cardinal Ugolino was very close. He was a close friend of Saint Francis. And then he tasked Thomas of Celano to write a life of his, of Saint Francis. Why? Because maybe he was a skilled writer, he was knowledgeable, the word spread about him. So Thomas of Celano was picked up by Pope Gregory IX and appointed as the author of writing the first life of Saint Francis. That changed his life. He became famous because of that. Now, the first book is one of the earliest biographies of Saint Francis of Assisi. There have been others, but this was like the official biographical life of Saint Francis commissioned by the Pope. It is structured into 3 books. The first book speaks, it's kind of structured in a chronological aspect. The first book is the largest in terms of size, containing 30 chapters. It speaks about Saint Francis's early years, his youth, his conversion, founding of the order. The second book speaks about Saint Francis's last 2 years of his life, the stigmata, his death and burial. And then book 3 captures in detail about the canonization ceremony of Saint Francis. Along with that, a couple of miracles are included in that. This was broadly published in 1229 by Pope Gregory IX. This was the official biography, so to say, of Saint Francis of Assisi. The next book, written by Thomas of Celano, is called The Legend for Use in the Choir. So what happened, there was a brother, Benedict. He petitioned Thomas of Celano to make a more concise version of the first life of Saint Francis that could be used by the brothers in their morning, evening prayer, in their daily prayer. So normally the brothers used to come. So in a church, suppose if this is the church and this is the sanctuary area, at the back used to be where the brothers used to come for prayer. If you see in the old churches, you will see that. The religious brothers and sisters used to come at the back for daily prayer. This writing was commissioned by Brother Benedict. Give us in a small, concise form the first life of Saint Francis. And Thomas of Celano wrote that. Why do we know it's written by Thomas of Celano? Because of a couple of words that are there which are very similar to the first life. And also, scholars over a period of time have studied it, and certain words and phrases are very similar to the style of the author. Now, what's new in this book? There's a precise time given for the death of Saint Francis that is not captured in the first life, on Saturday evening. And then the transfer of Saint Francis's remains to the new basilica have been captured. Initially, the remains of Saint Francis was in a local church in Assisi till the new basilica was built. And once the new basilica was built, his remains were transferred there. So Thomas of Celano has captured this. He was an eyewitness to that. Then we get into what is called the second life of Saint Francis. Now, the next Minister General of the Franciscan Order, Crescentius, so the religious brothers have a chapter. For us now in modern times, it's every 3 years, right? So he asked all the Franciscan brothers to collect whatever information they had about Saint Francis and pass it on to him. And then all that information that was passed on to him, he gave it to Thomas of Celano to write the second life. So this book was approved in another chapter of the brothers, and it's structured into 2 parts. The first part is a smaller one, just of about 17 chapters, just going again over through the baptism, his early life of Saint Francis. The second one is a much larger version. It runs into 166 chapters and is built around virtues. It speaks on how Saint Francis lived a life of virtue. The third book attributed to Thomas of Celano is what is called the Treatise on Miracles. It was approved in 1254, and it's basically a collection of all the extraordinary events that happened in the life of Saint Francis. So these were the 3 traditional books attributed to Thomas of Celano. Now, in the past couple of years, there was a new book discovered. It was found in one of the libraries. It was tucked away, hidden. And this is called The Rediscovered Life of Saint Francis of Assisi. It was discovered around about not even 10 years ago, right? It basically captures not so much the historical life of Saint Francis, but how the author was able to see how Saint Francis lived out his life. And this created a lot of buzz within the Franciscan community. And we were able to find an actual copy of this book. It was translated and it's available for reading. And I will later on at the end of the presentation show you a source where you can go and access it there. The next book, traditionally attributed to Thomas of Celano, is the life of Saint Clare of Assisi. I'm using the word carefully, traditionally attributed. Why? Because in the past 100 years or so, there's been a lot of modern scholarship on the life of Saint Clare, the book on life of Saint Clare. And especially many Italian scholars, some of them still attribute the authorship to Thomas of Celano, but some of them also said no, maybe it's someone else, because they are using a modern lens to read that book. German scholars favor Thomas of Celano as the author. French scholars are divided. Spanish scholars leave the question open. There's not too much clarity and certainty that Thomas of Celano is the author. While authors from England, they normally generally accept Thomas of Celano as the author. So you see, what was traditionally attributed to Thomas of Celano, at least the life of Saint Clare of Assisi, now the question is open in modern scholarship. Similarly, when we come to the famous work attributed to Thomas of Celano, Dies Irae, in Latin, the Day of Wrath. It was once part of the office for the dead, and it was regularly sung at requiem masses, masses for the dead. And it became very popular because it got put into music by many composers. It contains 18 stanzas, right? Of which later on an anonymous writer inserted one at the end. Now, again, this has been traditionally attributed to Thomas of Celano, but modern scholars have opened it up. They are not certain and sure that whether Thomas wrote it or not. So, where do I get these sources from? Excuse me. So those who are interested, this is one book, St. Francis of Assisi by Thomas of Celano, which was published around about 100 years ago. There were many, around about 150 years ago, there was an explosion of interest in the life of St. Francis. The famous book by the author Paul Sabatier really kindled interest in the life of St. Francis. His book became very popular. And with that, a lot of other authors started getting into the life of St. Francis and writing books. So if you want a book only on the life of St. Francis by Thomas of Celano, translated into English, this is one of them, right? This was done, I'll give you the date, 1962. Ever since then, there was a lot of scholarship done. So the next book that came up, that was published, I would say, was Clare of Assisi. (2006), published in 2006. This is modern scholarship. The author is a Capuchin brother, Regis Armstrong. Ever since even 2006, there have been newer publications. So there's a set of 3 books. They are called the early documents. This is one of them, the Saint, the Prophet. So I'm going to read to you one paragraph from these modern scholars on what has been the impact of Thomas of Celano's writings. Allow me. Thomas of Celano's The Life of St. Francis is a master's tapestry interweaving multiple colored threads of hagiography, historical data, invitation towards gospel and ecclesial renewal, and identification of the mission and formation of the Franciscan brothers. The frame of this tapestry, holding all together, is a profound theology of the Word and of the cross, fused into a Christology of incarnation and passion. There are many ways of approaching Thomas's portrait of Saint Francis. While Augustinian in nature, Thomas's anthropology draws the reader into a rich symbolical theology in which image, experience, and mysticism blend. His theology of conversion and grace reveals themselves at every turn. In his book, Thomas describes Saint Francis, as God's instrument of ecclesial renewal and reform. The life of Saint Francis is a text that demands active cooperation of the reader. So the initial language in which the book was written was in medieval Latin. Many translations have come out of that. There have been Italian translations and in different languages. So when you read the book, say in English, it is in a modern English translation. So you have to understand and put yourself in the shoes 800 years before to understand the author. And the author was a very skilled author. He became famous because of the life of Saint Francis. And that's what I will leave it out here. Thank you for giving me the time, and I thank Laura. Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. That was very educational. But before you leave us, we'd like to do a little question and answer period. If someone has some questions for Brother Sunil. We can, yes. Here. Please, brother.
The question is, what attributed to Tommaso being canonized?
Fra Tommaso wasn't canonized. He is still a blessed. Yeah. No, he was present at the canonization ceremony of St. Francis of Assisi. So he was an eyewitness, right? So in modern scholarship, the author, if he or she was closest to the experience that was going on and was an eyewitness, is considered a credible witness in terms of his or her writings. So what comes across is Thomas of Celano was present at the canonization ceremony of St. Francis because he speaks from his personal experience in his works.
Anyone else have a question?
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to also inform you that in support of the Order of Friars Minor Capuchin and their humanitarian missions around the world, there are these very special calendars for sale, the calendars of Frate Indovino. These ones here. Please consider making a purchase of a calendar to support the friars and their commendable missions. They're available on the table in the lobby.
Sorry to come in again. I will leave you with a resource, an online resource, if you want to access the latest translations. It's called Franciscan Tradition. You can sign up and read in English, and you have to check whether there's the other languages available, of all the works that are there related to St. Francis, including the works of Thomas of Celano. Right? So this is available online. You can just sign in, and then you'll get access to all the works there. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Okay, at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Vice President of the Celano Canadian Club, Mrs. Laura Di Gennaro, to lead us in the bursary award ceremony. Laura?
The Celano Canadian Club put out a call to students to prepare a research paper on Tommaso Da Celano for this special event today. And I have to say, they did a remarkable job, outstanding. We're pleased to announce that we have 3 groups of students that will receive the Fra Tommaso Scholarship Bursary Award. A heartfelt thank you to our sponsors that supported these bursaries, namely Itel Flores, Ventresca Travel, and Comites. I now invite Idolo Perez, the co-owner of Itel Flores, to come up and present the first bursary award. Students and teachers, when I call your names, please join us on stage. The first recognition is awarded to Michaela Vitoy and Angelina Lolomia in grade 8, and their teacher, Anna Stalteri, from St. Martha Catholic Elementary School. I now call upon Frank Ventresca, owner and lead travel advisor of Ventresca Travel, to present the second bursary award. This recognition is awarded to Madison Medeiros and Gianna Torleo in grade 8 and their teacher Anna Stalteri from St. Martha Catholic Elementary School. The final recognition, I would like to invite Michela Di Marco, President of Comites, to present the third bursary award. This recognition goes to Georgia Felli and Victoria Miniela in grade 11 and their teacher, Cosmo Femia, from Loreto Abbey School. I'd like to take this opportunity also to thank our 2 teachers here today, Anna Stalteri and Cosmo Femia, because without their support and their guidance for their students and their willingness to sort of guide this project along, we wouldn't have had the groups of students that we did. So thank you for all your work. It is truly appreciated. And congratulations to all of our award winners and for your great work. And thank you for your participation in the Fra Tommaso Scholarship Project.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the final musical interlude, once again performed by soprano Bianca D'Amore and pianist Sabrina Cadrone, which is entitled Cantico delle Creature by Umberto Pieroni, a contemporary composer. The text is by St. Francis of Assisi, written in 1224 and 1226. It is the first document of Italian literature. The first document of Italian literature. It is a hymn of praise to the Lord for the wonders of creation. Please enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and dear friends, as we come to the close of this special afternoon, we reflect on the life and legacy of Tommaso of Celano, a figure whose contributions to the Franciscan order and to the Church continue to resonate through the ages. Today, we have had the privilege of exploring his profound influence as the first biographer of St. Francis of Assisi, as well as his poetic works that captured the essence of Francis's spirit of humility, compassion, and devotion. Through his writings and his life, Thomas of Celano helped shape not only the Franciscan tradition, but also the broader Christian understanding of sanctity and service. The music and readings we have experienced today, the powerful Dies Irae in Gregorian chant, the moving Lacrimosa from Mozart's Requiem, and the joyful Cantico delle Creature have all served as beautiful expressions of the themes of praise, reverence, and faith that were central to Thomas's life and work. We are grateful for the artistry and devotion that brought these pieces to life in such a meaningful way. As we conclude, let us take a moment to reflect on the enduring message of Thomas of Celano, that true greatness lies not in earthly power or fame, but in living a life of faith, humility, and service to others. May his example continue to inspire us in our lives, guiding us toward a deeper relationship with God and a greater compassion for those around us. On behalf of all those who contributed to this event, I extend our heartfelt thanks to each of you for being here today. Your presence has made this celebration, Thomas da Celano, La Vita, Le Opere, I Luoghi, all the more special. If you're interested in learning more about upcoming events hosted by the Celano Canadian Club, or would like to know how to become a member, please visit the table in the lobby or speak to one of the executive members. Again, we would like to thank all of the board of directors of the Celano Canadian Club for today, Marco Dovidio, Laura Di Gennaro, Antonio Tomassini, Nadia Mazzonetto, Tony Arruda, Tom Guzzo, Cindy Russo, Tony Pompilli, and Ugo Baliva. You can also scan the QR code on your flyer, here, the QR code on your flyer for additional information. Thank you, and I wish you all a lovely afternoon. And buon appetito.
So we will be starting our meal, but we ask that you be seated because we're trying to, we'll start calling from the rows and invite you to the buffet table. At this time, before we eat, we always start with grace, so I'd like to invite Brother Sunil to share with us a small grace. Thank you.
Nel nome del Padre, del Figlio e dello Spirito Santo. Heavenly Father, we ask you for your blessings as we gather here today to partake of this meal. Bless us and bless our community that are gathered here. And bless all those who are not so privileged to be with us here and partake of this meal and share fraternity with one another. Bless the hands that have prepared the food, and we ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and